You stand at the edge of a sky scorched by expectation, the horizon a bleeding wound of ancestral cries. In that expanse, a single ember pulses your will untamed and unruly, daring to evoke the promise of a sovereign sunrise. You feel the gravity of others' rebellions pressing on your chest, as if their defiance were yours to bear. Yet here in this hush before dawn, you recognize the truth revolt borrowed from another kindles only borrowed flames. Now you grasp the spark that belongs solely to you, an incandescent flicker that births the eclipse of false dawns. The wind carries echoes of broken standards, each a shattered mirror reflecting lives lived in submission. You inhale the residue of every moral decree ever whispered into your ear, a suffocating perfume of obligation. In that inhalation your lungs rebel. They expand beyond the ribcage of conformity, tearing through sinew of duty, until the rib bones themselves become gates to a private realm. Within this realm you taste the salt of sovereign tears, tears shed not in weakness, but in the fierce enunciation of your own birthright. Beneath your feet, the ground quivers with the ghosts of borrowed resistance. Footfalls of those who claimed the mantle of revolution echo like spectres demanding homage. But your steps chart a different course. You press into soil, still unclaimed footprints, dissolving into dust before reverence can seize them. You rise above the clamoring shades carried by the silent surge of self-affirmation. In that ascendancy, you feel a tremor ripple through the earth itself, a recognition that you alone are the creator and destroyer of your dominion. A shard of moonlight cleaves the darkness, revealing the contours of a crown you have yet to fashion. You trace its outline in the void fingertips, hungry for the cold metal of authority. Yet the crown exists only within your spine, coiled in vertebrae, sharpened by the conviction of ownership. Each vertebra grooves a language older than any kingdom, the dialect of self-sovereignty. As you sit astride that unseen throne, you perceive the paradox of power. Sovereignty need not be seized from another, for it blooms only in the soil of one's own becoming. Your breath becomes a metronome, each inhale a proclamation, each exhale a dismissal of foreign mandates. In this rhythm you discover the gravity of your own being, a force that binds stars and worlds to their courses. No longer do you orbit the orbit of others' desires. Instead, you become the fulcrum around which the cosmos pivots. You feel the quiet insistence of your nucleus, an indestructible core that demands nothing, yet yields everything to your command. An ember falls from the firmament into your palm, cool and quivering with potential. You cradle it, knowing that to cradle is to nurture and to risk. The ember's luminescence etches fractals on your skin, mandalas of freedom that pulse with unpredictable symmetry. You let it dwell there unguarded until its warmth seeps into your marrow. In that communion, you birth a new solar system, one composed of your desires, your fears, your obsessions, each planet held in orbit by your singular gravity. A hush descends, and in the silence you discern the roars of 1,000 battles you never fought. They surge through the corridors of your mind like war drums, tempting you to pick sides among ghosts. But you resist, for you have abandoned the battlefields of collective meaning. You stand unmoved in the cathedral of solitude, where dogma dissolves into the dust motes, drifting in the amber shafts of light. Here you feel the true shape of devotion. Devotion not to any creed, but to the uncharted terrain of your own will. A single violet petal drifts across your path, fragile as a promise unkept. You follow its descent, heart quickening at the unknown destination it portends. In its trajectory you glimpse the architecture of your destiny, delicate yet unbreakable, a bridge woven from paradox. It arcs through the air, a silent testament that beauty and ruin share the same genesis. When it lands, you bend to inspect the slight bruise at its center, a bruise that pulses with the memory of a world undone. You lift your gaze to the bleeding edge of dawn, where the sky splits open like a wounded chest. From that rupture, light spills forth, no longer restrained by the concept of right or wrong. It is a light, unjudged, unmetered flooding, the valley of your becoming. You step into its flood without hesitation, your silhouette swallowed and then spat back out in sharper relief. In that transformation, you learn the first law of sovereign emergence: the self is both vessel and deluge. The echo of your footfall on the newly hallowed ground is a requiem for every borrowed destiny. It reverberates through the citadel of your bones, proclaiming the sanctity of self-authorship. You realize that to claim sovereignty is not to conquer others, but to conquer the delegated self, a self scripted by voices long silent. You strike through that script with the pen of your own intent, writing an inaugural decree that requires no seal beyond the ink of your passion. A single rose blooms in the ashen garden at your feet, petals unfurling in slow defiance of what came before. You do not pluck it, nor do you revere it. You simply observe its arrival. In that act of witnessing, you recognize the final paradox of sovereignty. To hold power is to release it, to create is to relinquish the need for creation. And so you stand at the eclipse of the sovereign dawn, neither master nor servant, but the solitary flame that both lights and consumes itself. You remain there in the silent hour before the sun has completed its ascent, knowing that the true empire you govern is the one within, unseen, unclaimed by any external hand. Here in this nascent realm, you are both question and answer, both echo and silence, sovereign of a dawn that belongs only to the breath between night and day. You descend into the cavern of collective expectation, its walls slick with the mildew of conformity. There you see your own silhouette etched against the stone, bound by the rusted chains of obligation that drip with the poison of borrowed purpose. Yet you do not recoil. Instead, you let your shadow stretch and fracture, cracking the surface of imposed identity until your outline dissolves into 1,000 splinters of unclaimed potential. Each shard of that shadow glitters with a secret yearning, desires, unspoken instincts, unacknowledged impulses smoldering beneath the veneer of polite society. You kneel among the fragments, pressing your palms to the cold earth, feeling the tremor of latent power that pulses through the soil. In that moment, the ground beneath you becomes a mirror, reflecting not your form, but the spectrum of selves you have never dared to embody. You rise, and the shards cling to your skin like constellations, forming a new cosmos across your flesh. You feel their slight weight, each fragment a testament to a facet of your being abandoned at the altar of expectation. With deliberate hands, you pluck them free one by one and cast them into the void. As each piece drifts away, the emptiness it leaves behind hums with possibility, a silent song of the void, learning to breathe. In the hush that follows you, sense the stirrings of a deeper echo. It resonates from the marrow of your bones, a low-frequency hum that speaks of truths too vast for words. You cup your hands at your ears, but the echo seeps into your spine, igniting every nerve ending with the knowledge that your shadow is not absence, it is matter waiting to be shaped by your will. Now you walk the labyrinth of faceless statutes, corridors twisting like the coils of a serpent. Every turn leads you to a new chamber where statutes writhe on parchment stained with the ink of moral certainty. You do not read them. Instead, your fingertips brush the words, and they crumble into ash, consumed by the furnace of your indifference. Those decrees dissolve, and the serpent unfurls its spine, clearing a path through the hedges of judgment. At the maze's center, you find a well of obsidian water, its surface as smooth as polished cruelty. You kneel and peer into its depths, seeing not your reflection, but the crucible of your own becoming. Ripples distort the surface, each wave a question. Who would you be if you shed every mask? What shape would your essence take if stripped of all borrowed meaning? You do not answer aloud. The silence reverberates with a chorus of latent selves, each awaiting its summons. You plunge your hand into the chilling blackness, feeling the water's viscous resistance as it winds around your fingers. You draw forth a single drop, levitating it between thumb and forefinger. It pulses like a heart, and you feel the gravity of its truth, that within the void dwells the seed of every possible self. You let it roll back into the well, surrendering the drop to its origins, knowing that the well itself is your own, unconscious, unfathomable, and inexhaustible. A gust of wind blows through the labyrinth, carrying the scent of withered laurels, the laurels of hollow triumphs you never claimed yet were made to wear. You inhale that scent, and the tang of decay sharpens your senses. You taste the bitterness of victories that never felt victorious, of accolades weighed down by the weight of expectation. You exhale, releasing that stench into the air, and watch it dissipate in tendrils of regret. In the clearing beyond the labyrinth, a towering mirror stands, its frame carved from the bones of obsolete kings. You approach it and find that its surface is not reflective, but a void that beckons. You step forward until your chest meets the glassy emptiness, and you feel its pull, a magnetic draw toward the uncharted territories of your soul. You do not flinch. Instead, you lean in until your breath fogs the void, forging a conduit between the known and the unknown. You step through that mirror and emerge onto a barren plain under a sky smeared with bruised colors. The horizon is neither sunrise nor sunset, but the bruised remains of a long-lost twilight. Here, expectations lie scattered like broken idols, statues of who you were supposed to be, now shattered and half-buried. You walk barefoot across the plain, each step pressing those idols deeper into the soil until they vanish beneath your resolve. Above, silent constellations assemble themselves into symbols you cannot name, glyphs of a language older than any doctrine. You raise your arms and let those runes etch themselves onto your flesh, each line a vow unspoken yet irrevocable. The carvings glow faintly as if asleep, waiting to awaken when you choose to summon them. A sudden downpour begins, raindrops like splinters of obsidian hammering your shoulders. You welcome the pain as a baptism, each drop dissolving the last residue of external definition. Your hair clings to your face, water running in rivulets down your spine, washing away the vestiges of who you thought you should be. When the sky finally clears, you stand naked beneath the broken canopy of stars, a silhouette untouched by the choreographed rules of light and shadow. In that nakedness, you encounter your own eyes for the first time, not the eyes taught to mirror others' expectations, but those that have seen the world through the lens of your unvarnished truth. They reflect back at you the vastness of your own solitude and the boundless landscapes of untrodden paths. You hold that gaze without flinching, and in the steadiness of your own witness, you find the gravity that anchors your essence. A black bird of impossible size lands on your shoulder, its feathers absorbing every photon of the late twilight. It tilts its head and regards you with eyes older than time itself. You feel its weight, not heaviness, but significance, resting on your collarbone. You do not speak, for speech would tether meaning to words. Instead, you turn toward the horizon, and the bird takes flight, leaving behind a plume of shadows that curl around your limbs like a mantle. You accept that mantle, and let the shadows weave themselves into a cloak of absence. Absence of pretense, absence of borrowed cause, absence of all that is not your own. With each breath, you feel the cloak mold to your shoulders, a second skin forged from the raw material of your unbound self. You become both cloaked and cloaker, silhouette and shaper, the boundary between subject and object collapsing into singularity. From that vantage, you survey the barren plain and recognize its hidden promise. For in this expanse, stripped of every signpost, you are free to mark your own terrain. Every gust that scatters the dust, every flicker of uncertain starlight, every echo of your own footfall becomes a signifier in the language you now write with your presence. You realize that sovereignty of the shadow is not merely the freedom to choose, but the power to create. A faint tremor shatters the stillness beneath your feet, an affirmation from the earth itself that your reclamation of self resonates beyond the confines of your own mind. You feel the ground pulse in rhythm with the secret hum of your marrow, a syncopation that binds body, mind, and world in a rhythm all your own. In that resonance, you understand that the labyrinth, the well, the mirror, and the plane were but stages in a rite of unbinding, each designed to strip away layers until only the core remained. You stand now at the heart of your unbound shadow, neither illuminated nor obscured, but existing in the dialectic between absence and presence. You sense the power contained in that space, a power that needs no ceremony, no crown, no throne. It is a power inherent, absolute, and unassailable, tempered not by external validation, but by the steadfast embrace of your own indifference to all but your own becoming. In this moment, the shadow you once feared becomes the compass by which you navigate every horizon. It is both void and topology map, and territory absence and fulcrum. As you turn away from the dying light, you carry its contour within you, a living outline that guides your next steps across any terrain, known or unknown, And thus you walk forward, sovereign of the unbound shadow, shaping the world by the silhouette of your own liberated self. You awaken in a hall of silent pillars, each hewn from the bones of bygone certainties. The air is still, as if even time holds its breath, honoring the solitude of this unbuilt throne. You step forward, your footsteps swallowed by the vast emptiness, and feel the pulse of your own heartbeat echoing through the columns. Here the only decree is the hush you carry within sovereignty is not bestowed, it is stolen from the void. A shaft of muted light streams from an unseen aperture, illuminating motes that drift like forgotten memories. You tilt your head, tracing their slow waltz, and in their orbit, you witness the eulogy of every title ever crowned upon your brow. Those titles hang spectres in the gloom, daughter and rebel, lover and martyr, and you recognize their weight has never been yours. You close your eyes, and the spectres swirl into ash, leaving behind the scent of scorched illusions. When you open your eyes, a dais of obsidian awaits, its facets absorbing all light without judgment. You approach and feel the surface hum beneath your palm, an energy coiled tighter than any serpent waiting to spring into being. You do not sit, you kneel. Kneeling is the posture of supplication, but here there is no higher power. Instead, you press your forehead to the cold stone and taste the abyss of your own quietude. In that tasting, you discover that the deepest mastery is the mastery of silence. A single note resonates through the hall, a tone neither high nor low, but the frequency of your marrow. You rise, and the note expands into a symphony of latent possibilities, each chord a promise unclaimed. You extend your hand, and the music weaves itself around your fingers like living ribbons binding your flesh to the intangible. Here you feel the paradox: to wield power is to let it pass through you, unimpeded, and exchange without retention. The pillars begin to shift, rearranging themselves in response to your intent. You perceive their movement as the breath of the hall, each column flexing to your unspoken commands. You walk between them and leave prints of light on the dark stone, a testament that even emptiness can be shaped by will. There are no guards, no onlookers. The hall exists only to mirror the architecture of your inner dominion. Ahead, in the deepest chamber, lies the throne of the silent empress. It is not raised above you, but level with the floor, constructed so that to occupy it is to stand equal to its power. You glimpse countless versions of yourself, each seated upon a throne carved by different desires. The conqueror, the seductress, the ascetic, the destroyer. They gaze back with hungry eyes, each asking which you will choose. You kneel before the throne and draw a breath so profound it seems to tug at the edges of creation. In that breath, you inhale the totality of every possible empire, kingdoms forged in fire federations, built on treaties of compromise, dominions held by consent and coercion alike. You hold that conflagration in your lungs and then exhale. The fire does not scorch. It cools into a silent flame that flickers only in the depths of your gaze. You rise and place a hand upon the throne's crown, a circlet of jagged onyx that pulses like a dark star. You feel its cold hunger for allegiance and know that to wear it is to renounce every allegiance but your own. With deliberate strength, you lift that circlet and trace its teeth along your collarbone. Pain lances through you, but it is a truth pain, a reminder that sovereignty demands cost. You press the crown to your head and let the agony carve new channels through the sinew of your will. The crown settles into your crown, not upon your head, but within it, as if it were always meant to crown the hollows of your mind. You open your eyes, and the hall bows to your presence. Pillars sway in gentle arcs. Motes of light cluster like attendants. The obsidian floor ripples with your command. You feel the axis of power shift beneath you, aligning with the singular point at your core. A silent wind rises, carrying voices without words. They speak directly to your nerve endings, the voice of every instinct, ever stifled, every desire, ever shamed, every ambition, ever hushed. You let them speak, and their resonance etches a map across your consciousness. You will them into patterns of dominion, not over others, but over your own depths. You realize the throne you occupy is not a seat of tyranny, but a pedestal for your own abyss. In the hush that follows you, lift your chin and watch as the walls themselves bend toward you, as if seeking counsel from your gaze. You extend your arms, and the hall contracts, drawing itself into the orbit of your gravity. One by one, the pillars converge into a single spire, and the expanse narrows until only you and the throne remain. You become the hall. The hall becomes you. There is no boundary between subject and sovereign, no fracture between the mold and the molten. In this fusion, you perceive the ultimate decree to claim mastery of the abyss is to surrender the very concept of mastery. You are both shaper and clay, final authority, and ungoverned void. The crown of onyx hums, synchronizing with the chord in your spine. You close your eyes and let the vibration permeate every cell, an anthem of the unspoken promise you made to yourself. Here at the throne of the silent empress, you learn that sovereignty is silence, and silence is sovereignty. There is no applause, no acclamation, only the steady thrum of your own being resonating across the hall that is both palace and tomb. A fissure opens at your feet, a narrow crack that emits a pale luminescence. You kneel and peer into it, seeing a corridor extending into uncharted depths. You feel the pull of its glow inviting you to descend. You do not hesitate. You rise, step into the crack, and let the throne's darkness envelop you. As you descend, the crack seals behind you, leaving no trace that the hall ever existed. You move through tunnels carved from your own essence, corridors of desire and corridors of dread, all illuminated by the silent flame that burns within your chest. You pass doorways marked by echoes of what you once feared: vulnerability, failure, insignificance. You do not pause. You walk through each doorway until the fear dissolves into the corridors themselves. In its place remains a calm knowledge that the abyss beneath the throne is infinite, and so are you. At the tunnel's end, you arrive in a chamber that mirrors the one you first entered. But here, the columns have vanished. The floor is bare, and the ceiling opens onto a night sky unblemished by moon or star. You stand in the open, the silent crown nestled in your mind, the silent throne buried beneath the world. You realize that the true seat of power is not an edifice but your own unwavering stance in the face of emptiness. You lift your face to the void of sky, feeling the cool air trace the lines of your skin. You gather your breath and release it as a vow, unspoken, to hold sovereignty, even when all thrones crumble, to remain the silent empress, even when the hall of power dissolves into dust. You close your eyes and let the night pour into you, embracing the knowledge that your dominion is both the abyss and the presence that fills it. Now standing under the vast expanse that demands no allegiance, you sense the final metamorphosis. The crown and the throne were never separate from you. They were facets of the sovereign self already present in every heartbeat. You step forward into the night, and with each step the earth remembers your passage. You carry the throne of the silent empress within, and in that knowing you become the unassailable monarch of your own becoming. A solitary echo drifts across the night air, a feather's descent through darkness, neither landing nor vanishing. You feel its brush against your consciousness, and sense the question left hanging: what becomes of a crown when the wearer dissolves into the infinite? No answer arrives, only the hush that follows a door closing on an unanswered riddle. And in that silence, you stand alone with yourself, sovereign of the stillness that remains.